But first, we're going to start New Day with this controversy in the NBA that's caught the attention of not only athletes and fans and people here across the country, but President Obama. He's in the middle of his week-long trip to Asia. Today, he spoke out on the firestorm surrounding Donald Sterling, the owner of one of the league's top teams, the LA Clippers. So Sterling is dominating headlines this morning. He's accused of making racist remarks.
Now, this conversation between Sterling and his girlfriend all recorded and apparently sparked by a photo of that girlfriend with Magic Johnson that she posted on Instagram.
I saw someone I admire. I admire Magic Johnson.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
He's made a lot of changes for his community, for the world, for the people, for the minorities. He's helped a lot of people.
Why are you forcing this down my throat? I'm finished talking to you. I have nothing more to say.
And I took a picture with someone I admire.
Good.
And he happens to be black, and I'm sorry.
I think it's nice that you admire him. I know him well, and he should be admired. And I'm just saying that it's too bad you can't admire him privately. And during your entire life, your whole life, admire him. Bring him here, feed him, him. I don't care. You can do anything. But don't put him on this event for the world has to see, so they have to call me. And don't bring him into my games, okay?
The tape, which was made public by TMZ, is sparking reaction not only from the sports world, but as we told you, from the president. He had this to say during the stop in Malaysia during his Asia tour.
When ignorant folks want to advertise their ignorance, you don't really have to do anything. You just let them talk, and that's what happened here.
Now, Magic Johnson, the subject of at least part of Sterling's rant, airing his thoughts on Twitter, calling the remarks, quote, a black eye for the NBA, and adding, quote, my wife and I will never go to a Clippers game again as long as Donald Sterling is the owner.
Yeah, we're also hearing from NBA Hall of Famer and TNT Sports host Charles Barkley, who says that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver must take swift action regarding Sterling.
This is the first test of Adam Silver. He's got to suspend him right now.
Well, for his part, Silver, who has only been at the top job for a few months now, denounced the remarks, but also called for patience as the league investigates.
The audio recording posted by TMZ is truly offensive and disturbing. And we intend to get to the bottom of it as quickly as possible. All members of the NBA family should be afforded due process and a fair opportunity to present their side of any controversy, which is why I'm not yet prepared to discuss any potential sanctions against Donald Sterling.
So let's dig a little deeper into this with CNN's Andy Scholes, who's joining us along with Jason Johnson, HLN contributor and professor of political science at Hiram College. Thank you both for being here. We appreciate it.
So, Andy, the commissioner talked about the process, but there are a number of things that the league can do. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, well, the most likely thing to happen is a fine and a suspension. You know, an NBA owner has never been suspended before, so that would be a big step in itself. A fine. Donald Sterling's worth, according to Forbes, about $1.9 billion. So it's going to be irrelevant to fine the man. But a suspension, if you suspend him indefinitely, maybe for a year, you know, he is 80 years old, so he's getting up there in age. That's the most likely scenario to happen. Now, people are saying, well, can they take the NBA team away from him? Now, of course, that's never happened. Now, the NBA constitutional, it's confidential. We really don't know what's in there, but according to reports, there's no bylaws or anything that say a team can be taken away from an owner just based on, you know, reprehensible language or actions such as we're hearing from Sterling, if that is, in fact, him on the tape. So that's unlikely to happen. It's also unlikely to happen because the NBA owners will probably be reluctant to set a precedent like that if they have actions or language that, you know, such as Sterling's, that their team could be taken away from them. So the most likely thing to happen is a fine and suspension. We'll have to see how the investigation plays out, as Adam Silver said last night during his press conference. But he did say he has broad powers in place to hand down a range of sanctions.
Okay, Jason, let me ask you. First of all, we need to be clear. They haven't, that Don Sterling's team has not denied this, nor have they confirmed it. We need to be clear about that, for one thing. But when it comes to Don Sterling, okay, that's him. What about the players? There was I think the former Clipper guard Ron Harper, in a phone interview, said that Sterling took care of me when I played there, but if I'd known then what I know now, there's no way I would have ever played for him. Some people are saying the players should take a stand. How likely is it that a player who's making 7 figures and this is his livelihood is going to say, no, I'm going to give it up. I'm not playing for this guy.
Yeah, they're not going to do that because there's money involved. And also because they don't know what the consequences could be for them. You can't just not show up at work because your boss is a jerk. I think that'd get any of us in trouble. So what they're looking at right now is they're looking at Chris Paul, and they're trying to see, since he's the head of the players union, what can they actually do to show their disdain and dislike for this guy? And really, this is a failure of leadership on so many levels, on Adam Silver's part, on David Stern's part. This is not the first time we've had an owner get in trouble, and they should have had rules in place to deal with these kinds of situations.
You know, I was reading some of the tweets from the coaches, some of the players, Andy, and there's one that stood out to me. Baron Davis, former Clippers guard, now retired, and the tweet is, "That's the way it is." He's honest about what he believes in, been going on for a long time. Hats off to the team for playing above it all. It seems like that is probably an anomaly compared to all the other comments from, you've got Kobe Bryant saying, I couldn't play for him. What are you seeing?
Well, yeah, LeBron said there's basically just no room for Donald Sterling in the NBA. And Adam Silver was asked, what do you think about LeBron's comments? Of course, he still said we're, in the due process. We're in the investigation. We have to see how it plays out. But there's a lot of players out there saying, we wouldn't play for him. There's no room for this in the NBA. You have guys like Magic Johnson, who was, of course, the subject of some of that conversation, saying, I'm never going to a Clippers game again. You have Jalen Rose saying the same thing. I'm never going to a Clippers game again. And this is going to be a big issue going forward if Donald Sterling is still the owner in terms of like free agency and NBA players. If you go back just to last year when Chris Paul was a free agent, if this was out there and he was getting, similar offers, of course, the Clippers could offer him a little more money. But if he was getting similar money and he knew this, would you go play for the Clippers or would you go play somewhere else?
Yeah, and that's a serious conversation we had about, do you make that decision especially based on money? $7 million, would you turn it down to say, I can't work for the guy?
That's not going to happen under any circumstance. Look, this isn't new. Let's be honest.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. I mean, since 2009, there have been issues.
This guy's gotten in trouble. He was talking to a Villanova coach saying, I want you to coach a team of N-words back in the 90s. Okay, every single person knows what kind of guy that Donald Sterling is. Magic Johnson knows what kind of person. You think Elgin Baylor didn't tell Magic the kinds of things that were going on in the organization? So I think a lot of this is people feeling comfortable now expressing disdain that they've always had for him. But dollars are going to make people go for the team. The bigger issue is the NBA's black eye, and what do they do about this?
What really stood out to me is this nomination for a Lifetime Achievement Award from the LA chapter of the NAACP. Now, the state president put out this statement. I'm going to read just one sentence. We urge the LA branch of the NAACP to withdraw Donald Sterling from the honorary list at its upcoming gala. Also, that we suggest African Americans and Latinos should honor his request and not attend the games. But I was conversing with a friend last night, and I have the tweet. I'm not going to read his name, but he says about that potential boycott. What happens to all the hardworking people who really represent that brand? This man is just the money behind it. Make him suffer. But how do you do that without making the person who needs that next check to pay for rent suffer?
Well, there's a lot of ways you can do it, and this is where the league has failed. They should have rules in place for how you can financially and politically and publicly embarrass and suspend an owner, and they don't have that right now. And this is why this is a bigger issue. You have Chris Paul, Cliff Paul, you have, Blake Griffin. You have the two most marketable guys in the NBA who happen to be on this team in like the second largest market in the country. How could David Stern and Adam Silver not already have a plan in place? We had an owner before who was in trouble for sleeping with a secretary, an owner got in trouble for sleeping with a babysitter. They've had problems in the past. They should have a better way to do this. And no, regular people don't need to suffer for David Sterling's bigotry.
Yeah. And you got to feel bad for the Clippers coaches and players. Doc Rivers, Chris Paul. These guys did nothing wrong. The fans did nothing wrong.
And it's a big moment, right?
Exactly. And they have a big game today against the Warriors in Game 4 of their series. So people are saying, hey, they shouldn't play. Well, these guys worked all year for this. If you're a fan of the team, like you're a fan, Victor, and you're waiting for this game, why should you suffer just because this guy says exactly? So you need to find a way to punish Donald Sterling, but the Clippers organization from him down, you know, should not see something happen to them, because this, like I said, all the fans have been looking for. This is the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's been great so far. It's a shame that we have to talk about this with the great first round of the NBA playoffs that we're having so far.
Well, we're going to continue this conversation. We'll have you back at 7. We'll see you back at 8. Thank you both for joining this conversation.
Tweet us if you have any questions.
People are
that you
talking
want
about
answered.
this, not just in the sports world. And with the president of Malaysia having the conversation, we certainly had to start with
that
this
definitely
morning.
brings it into the headlines, no doubt about it. Thank you both so much for being here. All right.